The stagecoach rattled over fractured ground, the wooden wheels groaning beneath the strain of 6 weary travelers and the weight of things left unsaid. Inside, they rocked and swayed with every jolt, surrounded by dust, sweat, and a heavy, unspoken tension. Clara Whitmore sat upright, her gloved hands clenched on the seat. Her hat sat crooked on her head, but she didn't bother fixing it. Across from her, Judge Walter Grayson, her future husband by a marriage deal, watched her with the cold, practiced look of a man who expected obedience. He was twice her age, with a silver beard and a voice like a chisel. "You'll adjust to the mountain air," he said. "It builds character." Clara stared out the window at the endless sweep of prairie, where golden grasses kissed a broad blue sky. "Is that what women need up there?" she asked. He allowed himself a small smirk. "Obedience helps, but character lasts." Beside the judge sat Reverend Claiborne, a tired man gripping a battered Bible. He avoided Clara's gaze, though concern flickered in his eyes. Next to Clara sat Jeremiah Thompson, an older black man, recently freed, who carried his freedom papers in his boot and the hope of owning land in Colorado. He gave Clara a nod, and she returned it stiffly. At the back of the coach, Mr. and Mrs. Lehen, the German owners, whispered in their native tongue. Their horses had been dragging for miles, and both of them sensed the approach of a storm. Clara turned to the Reverend and asked, "Do you think God minds if a woman marries without love?" He hesitated, then replied, "God sees the heart, but watches what we choose when our hearts are broken." Judge Grayson interrupted, "This isn't about heartache. It's about responsibility. Your father agreed. The contract is legal. You gain safety, status, a future." Clara gave a bitter laugh. "And what do you get, Judge?" He looked straight at her. "Peace." Without warning, the coach jolted violently. Mrs. Lehen screamed. The horses panicked, rearing and screaming. Thunder rolled, not from above, but the ground itself. "Bison!" Mr. Lehen cried from the driver's perch. "Get down!" Too late. A herd of wild buffalo crested the ridge like a tidal wave of muscle and rage. The horses reared. The stagecoach tipped. Wood splintered. The world spun. Clara was thrown against the wall. Glass exploded. Then darkness. The stampede rolled on. When the wind stilled, it carried only silence. The wreckage was scattered across the plain. Wood smoked. A wheel turned once, then stopped. Beneath a shattered beam, Clara lay broken and bloodied, her white dress torn, her hand clutching a gold ring she never got to wear. Far off, a solitary figure followed the herd. John Two Birds, a man of Lakota blood and pale heritage, moved like a ghost. His father had called him Thunder Walker. That name meant little now. When he smelled the smoke, he followed it. He crouched low over the crest and spotted the wreck. 6 bodies. A still-kicking horse's leg, shattered wood. He crept closer, bow in hand. Among the dead, he saw one twitch. Not the wind, eyes opened wide. The girl was alive. Clara. John froze. She was white. Alive. Dangerous. He remembered his father, who had once helped a lost girl across a river and ended up hanged without trial. He started to back away, but her eyes met his. Not with fear alone, something raw, desperate. A whisper, "Please." He hesitated, cursed, then stepped forward. He dragged the beam away carefully. Her broken body whimpered, but she didn't scream. She was too light as he carried her, draped across his shoulders, blood soaking into his vest. He didn't take her to his camp. Too risky. Instead, he carried her northwest to an old hunting pit used for trapping deer. There, beneath a camouflaged cover, he laid her down. She stirred, just barely. He gave her a few sips of water. Her hand gripped his wrist weakly. He watched her, porcelain-skinned, bruised, fragile. He retrieved a wooden necklace from his bag. Pine beads his sister had carved before she starved. He left it beside her hand. "She won't understand," he muttered. "But maybe the spirits will." Then he left. Later, Clara awoke. Sunlight filtered through the trees. She lay on a blanket that smelled of smoke and hide. Her body ached all over. Her corset was gone, her dress torn, boots muddy. The ring still dug into her palm. She saw him then, kneeling nearby, sharpening a bone knife. Dressed in deer hide, his face unreadable. He didn't move. Panic surged. She lunged at him with a hidden hairpin. But he caught her wrist midair, calm and precise. No anger, no sound. Just firm contact. Their eyes locked. Then he let go, turned away, and pointed to the ground. Only then did she notice what he'd done. Cleared space for her, left a blanket, a cup, food. He climbed out of the pit and disappeared. The first day she didn't eat. The second, she tasted the cornmeal mush. Warm, bland, but nourishing. He returned each day. No words, no threats. The third day, she asked, "What do you want from me?" He didn't answer. He pointed to his throat and then around, suggesting either he couldn't speak or wouldn't. "You saved me," she said. "Why?" He said nothing. Drew in the dirt. A buffalo, a cross, the word wait. She didn't understand. But she stayed. Days passed. She healed. Watched. Waited. And the man who had once turned away from a dying woman now turned back, again and again, saying nothing, giving everything. He never came near the hollow while she was awake. Now and then she'd catch sight of him across the ridge, his eyes fixed on the horizon, a longbow strapped to his back. He moved like a shadow, fast, silent, almost impossible to follow. Still, he kept his distance. Never spoke, never acknowledged her presence for more than a fleeting glance. One night, she dreamed of the stagecoach. The moment her mother's hand slipped from hers, the wheels shattering, the judge's voice bellowing her name. She awoke screaming, clawing at the dirt, calling for her mother. No one came. Her cries wore her voice raw, and by morning thunder rumbled in the distance. When she finally sat up, wiping her tears away, she saw something new. A simple canopy stretched across the pit, buffalo hide tacked down with stakes. A strip of leather hung from the edge, scribbled with charcoal. "No more rain, I promise." He hadn't comforted her, hadn't offered a word, but he'd done this. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the message to her face. It wasn't sympathy, it was care. And it was the first honest promise she'd been given in a long time. By the second week, the ground stopped feeling like a coffin. He appeared one morning and gestured toward the slope. Clara hesitated, stiff from days curled in the hollow, but climbed out, gripping the woven edge with shaking hands. The sun stung, but the wind was a blessing. He said nothing, only passed her dried meat and turned, expecting her to follow. She did. The camp was humble. 3 lean-tos of hide and bone, a quiet fire, a pit for smoking meat, and a rough corral holding 2 ponies. There were no borders, no markings, just open land and the heavy silence of untold stories. He marked the boundary of the camp with emotion, no going past. She nodded. She didn't want to run. Not anymore. That afternoon, she wandered to the edge of the hills and froze. A field stretched before her, not of grain, but of bison skulls, each one aligned to face the sunrise. Their hollow eyes seemed to look through centuries. Some still bore burns. John approached in silence. She turned to him. "Why?" He didn't answer right away. He knelt, placed 2 fingers on a cracked forehead, and said quietly, "They go first. We follow." She didn't ask if he meant bison or people. It didn't matter. She joined him, fingertips brushing bone. "They're not trophies," she guessed. He shook his head. "Family." She didn't laugh. Back at camp, she began to move differently, observing how he prepared roots and meat, crushed berries into ash for healing. She stitched a blanket, repaired rope using lace from her torn dress. He never praised, never criticized, just watched. Eventually, she asked questions. Did he have family? Where did he learn to cook? No words, but once he drew in the dirt. A tall figure and a small one, then a bison beside them. He crossed the bison out. She understood. That night, she cried. Not for herself, but for the sister he had lost. A few days later, she returned alone to the site of the wreck. The coach was still broken, Wheels scattered, bones bleached. Only one body remained. Jeremiah Thompson, the freedman who had smiled at her before everything went wrong. She buried him with her bare hands, nails splitting, palms bleeding, and laid a scrap of her bodice across his chest. When she returned, John said nothing, but his eyes lingered on her longer than ever before. That night, he set a second bowl of stew beside her. "Thank you," he whispered, his first words to her. It was enough. Clara began building a shelter of her own. Small, rough, but sturdy. She packed the seams with mud, braced the walls against the wind. It wasn't much, but it was hers. John stayed nearby, sharpening his knife, occasionally glancing her way. When she finished, she brewed tea from wild herbs. Offering him a cup, she teased. "It's not poison." He sipped, grimaced. "It's bitter," she agreed. "But it helps." He nodded, then sat beside her by the fire. They didn't speak, just sat while the wind stirred the grass and coyotes howled beyond the ridge. "I'm leaving in spring," she said. He didn't flinch. "When the snow melts, I'll find a town. Helena, maybe farther." Still no reaction. "Don't you want to know why?" she asked. He stirred the fire. "I don't ask what's already been decided." She studied him. "Aren't you curious what I'll do?" He shrugged. "I'm not going for safety," she said. "I'm going to see if I still want that world." The next morning, she was gone. John found her shelter empty, the fire cold. He stood still for a long time, then turned back to his routine. But hours later, he heard footsteps. She reappeared, wind-blown and flushed. "Made it half a mile," she said. "Then I realized, my friend is living alone in a graveyard. I won't leave him like that." He stared. She stepped closer. "You hunt dying animals. Talk to skulls. Sleep where your family left. You're not surviving. You're burying yourself with them." His voice cracked. "I'm not a good man." "I don't need a good man," she said. "I need a real one." He looked away, jaw tight. "Because I'm not good either. I almost married someone I didn't love. I stood by while others hurt. I let fear tell me who I was. But not anymore." John didn't reply, but he sat beside her, closer than before. Neither mentioned what came next. For once, they had chosen to stay. Then came the scent. Iron, grease, whiskey on the wind. John stiffened, crept up the ridge. Below, 6 men were setting camp near the creek. Horses pawed the mud. Men shouted and laughed, opening crates of rifles, tossing skinned hides. One threw a bison tongue into a skillet. Clara joined him, pale. "Who are they?" "Hunters," he said. "What are they hunting?" He pointed at the meat. "They kill for sport," he added. "Leave the rest to rot." She recoiled. "That's not hunting. That's cruelty. They call it progress." From below came more voices. Boasts, slurs. One mentioned a blonde girl, fancy clothes, limping. "If she's still alive, I'll find her." Clara whispered, "They can't know I'm here." "They won't," John said. "But if they see me, they'll see you. And if they see me, I don't survive." That night, no fire, no light. They packed quietly and rode together under the moon. One horse, moving through darkness. Clara held him tightly, every noise a threat. Hours passed until they reached jagged rocks like teeth. John led them into a hidden cave. Inside, the air was dry, still. Old paintings decorated the walls, buffalo, stars, a woman by fire. "This was your home?" she asked. "My mother's," he said. "Before the army came. She dreamed here." He lit a small ember near an old ash pile. Bones wrapped in deerskin rested in the corner. "She died in winter," he said. "No wood, no food. I burned what we had. Then her." Clara whispered, "I'm sorry. She wanted to stay with the land. So I brought her here." He pulled a carved bison from his coat, smoothed by years. "She gave me this, said it held strength." Clara held out her hand. "May I?" He gave it to her. She closed her fingers around it like a prayer. "You should keep it," she said. He shook his head. "It's done its job." She looked at him, Not with fear, not with thanks, but with understanding. When everything else had fallen away, and all that remained was the bare truth of who she was, she found herself poised to marry a man who saw loyalty as something to be bought. "He never even asked what books I loved," she murmured. Her father used to claim that love was something that came after, but when John asked her if it had, she simply replied, "No, it never did." They sat together in silence, wind tearing through the canyon and coyotes calling in the distance. John whispered, "You should try to rest." "Not with ghosts screaming in my head," she said. He leaned in, their foreheads touching lightly. "Then don't sleep. Just stay." Her eyes closed, lashes damp. "I don't need to feel safe," she breathed. "I need to feel real." When he kissed her, it wasn't like the romantic myths, but like two people clinging to one another in a world that had taken too much. It wasn't rescue. It was resilience. When they pulled away, only embers glowed. She nestled against his side. "Home," he whispered, and she believed him. By morning, the cave felt like a dream receding into memory. Clara stood near the trail, the carved bison figure warm in her palm. Her thoughts churned with all they'd endured, the quiet, the flames, the breathless connection. But the world was catching up. "I have to go," she said. John didn't look up. "To where?" "To the patrol. The fort by Smoky Hill. If they find us first, they'll hang you. But if I go on my own, I can explain." He stopped tying his saddle. "And you think they'll believe you? A white woman, telling stories, with a man like me in the woods?" "They have to," she said. His jaw tightened. "They don't have to do anything. I can't stay hidden. We're already like ghosts," she whispered. "You might not make it back," he said. She nodded. "But if I don't try, neither of us will ever be free." He gave her a canteen, food, and a pouch of herbs. "If they touch you, I'll talk first," she said with a flicker of a smile. By dusk, she reached the crude wooden outpost, 5 soldiers and a stern officer watching her approach. "I'm Clara Whitmore. I was on the coach that crashed past Cedar Bluff." The men stirred. "The judge's fiancé?" the captain asked. "I was," she said. "But he's gone now." "And who kept you alive?" She hesitated. "A hunter. A man. Indian." She nodded. The mood shifted. Guns tensed. "He didn't abduct me, he saved me. I'd have died without him." The captain frowned. "You came to plead for him?" "He never hurt me. Never forced me." A soldier challenged her. "That's not what the papers said." She stood straighter. "He's not what they think. And I'm not missing. I'm here." "Did you lead him here?" the captain demanded. Before she could answer, John stepped from the trees, hands high. "She didn't. I followed to protect her." "Down!" a soldier barked. John knelt. Clara ran to shield him. He could have run. He didn't. Law says any man who harbors an escaped woman. She wasn't running. She was surviving, Clara cried. She pulled out the ring she had worn through fire and wreckage, held it up, then threw it into the dirt. "This was chosen for me. But I choose differently now. I choose him. I choose freedom." Silence spread. "If that's a crime, then jail me too. I'll share his cell." The captain's face twisted with uncertainty. Finally, he ordered the rifles lowered. "You're not prisoners anymore. But don't leave Kansas. Stay west of the Smoky River. Out of the towns." Clara helped John to his feet. No words passed between them, just understanding. Together, they turned away from the world that tried to claim them. Behind them, the ring lay untouched. Ahead lay wild, unclaimed land. Weeks passed. The air no longer smelled of ash but of blooming life. Clara knelt beneath the half-built awning of a shack on the prairie. Her hands were dusted with flour, aprons stained with berry juice and stew grease. Smoke curled from a chimney made of patience and prairie stones. It wasn't much: 1 room, dirt floor, handmade table, a shelf of wrapped loaves. But it was hers. A chalkboard bore her own lettering, Clara's Bakery. Below it, faint words: "If you've ever been hungry, you have a right to live." Her first customer was a boy, maybe 7, shirt too big, hands empty but hopeful. She handed him a steaming loaf. He didn't speak, just clutched it tight and ran. Clara watched, her throat thick. Nearby, John leaned against a post he'd set that morning, chewing venison. His knife rested at his hip, bow slung across his back, a fresh kill tied to his mare. His eyes were calm in a way life rarely allowed. Their life was quiet now, on the edge of everything. John followed the herds each day, shadow-like, protective, rarely firing a shot. Clara baked with what she could gather: grasses, berries, honey, recipes remembered from John's mother. At night, they sat together under the stars. The silence no longer carried fear. It was peace. That day, Clara stepped outside, brushing flour from her hands, walking toward the field's edge. The sun cast gold across the land. On the horizon, bison moved in slow majesty, stirring red dust with each step. She stopped, awe-stilling her breath. A hand rested on her back, he didn't need to speak. "They're coming back," she whispered. He nodded. "They always were. We just stopped seeing." She turned to him, eyes wet. "You see it too?" "Yes," he said. "It's not over." "No," she whispered. "It's only beginning." The bison passed. Dust rose like soft fire, not from violence but memory, not graves but life. Thank you for walking this journey across windswept plains and quiet embers. If this tale stirred something in you, reminded you that love can grow even from ruin, don't let the story end here. Subscribe to Wild West Love Stories, and let the trail continue. With every story, a spark. Until next time, partner, keep the fire lit.